Okay, one more, guys. One more. Because, guys, the thing is, Reb Shlomo would always say, because sometimes he would always start his shiur, and this, I'm sorry to tell you that I'm not Shlomo, I'm not Reb Shlomo. My shiur is not going to be anything as awesome as Reb Shlomo's, but we can try. You know, that's what we have to do. We just have to try our best. And Reb Shlomo would always start with a song. And I heard one time, Reb Shlomo was the sweetest. Reb Shlomo, every single thing he had, he gave to everyone, and like his time and his energy and his money, literally everything. And he was so sweet with everyone. He was always known to show such love and warmth. So one time, I was listening to one of his home recordings of a class he was giving, and he started with a song. And in the middle, he stops. He stops and he says, guys, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but the truth is, it's not like we're singing and then we're going to learn. They're not two separate things. The singing is to get you to the place where you could understand what I'm going to say. So let's sing one song together. Hey, brother. Let's sing one song together. And Roman loves this song. This is Roman's favorite song in the world. Hey, bros, I need you guys. Sure. I just tuned it.
Yeah?
I know, it sounds untuned also. Anyway, what are you gonna do?
By the way, that meatball spaghetti is amazing.
I want to try some.
Really good.
So, do you have some papers or papers somewhere in the world else? Any papers?
Yeah, I love you. I think you should actually roll up in the soup, huh?
So guys, L'chaim. It's like the craziest time because we're sandwiched between the two most amazing times in the entire year. We're sandwiched between Purim and Pesach. Purim and Pesach. I mean, as Gambit said, life don't get much better than that. L'chaim, l'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nהיה b'dvaro. Oh, it's coffee. No, it's good. So, no.
Sugar don't eat sugar, man.
Sugar no.
So, guys, my cousin is visiting us today. And,
Holy cousin.
it's a beginning of a.
What's his name?
Johnny.
Johnny. Savage.
Nice to meet you guys.
You here for Shabbos?
Yeah, of course.
You can have a good Shabbos. Unless you're going with me.
And then you have an even better shot.
Oh no.
So, guys, l'chaim. There's such soul energy happening right now. It's hard to believe. Because Purim, we all know that Purim is the highest. Purim, we experience the ultimate wiping out of evil. There's only good. We're blessing Haman, we're blessing evil itself. We only see the good in everything, and we reach such a spiritual light. It says the light of Purim is going to last even after Mashiach comes. And then we're about to approach Pesach, which really is where we became a nation. And Pesach is about just reaching over and reaching beyond everything. So tonight, I don't know exactly why, but I figured why not. We're gonna do a 3-part series. We'll do tonight, will be the first aspect of being in Egypt, really understanding. Like they say, an addict, the first step is to admit, right, that there's something wrong, to understand what it means that our sages told us every single person, and the Alter Rebbe added, and every single day needs to view themselves as if they themselves left Egypt. So, I've never been to Egypt, although I've been to the Sinai, but that's not officially Egypt.
The physical Egypt.
That's not real Egypt. That's right now the current border of Egypt. But I've never been to Egypt. So the sages are the wisest, most intelligent, awesome people in the world. What are they telling me? What are they teaching me? What do they want from me, from us, to feel like we are leaving Egypt? There's something very deep going on over here. So to understand what does it mean really to be in Egypt. And then hopefully next week, and also hopefully this week, we'll understand the purpose of being in Egypt. Not just what it means to be in Egypt, but why we're in Egypt. And then next week, hopefully, how to really break through and break free and enter the ultimate, the goal, the paradise, enter the land of milk and honey within our own psyche, within our own soul. And then the final week, I want to go through the Haggadah and how everything we spoke about this week and next week, we're supposed to experience through all the things we do in the Seder. So that's just a little vision I had.
Come true.
L'chaim, amen, l'chaim. So, well, So, first of all, Egypt. We all know the story. Yaakov was living Israel, and there was a big famine. So Yaakov says, let's go down to Egypt. Let's go to Mitzrayim. So that we can live. Wow, so that we can live. And they stay there and they prosper. They prosper so much, they grow to such a nation, such a people, that Pharaoh himself is scared of the Jews. So he says we have to make them slaves, control them, oppress them, kill their firstborn, males, and we'll take the women. And just the women had some value, you know. Women, they're always so precious, the Jewish woman.
They believed also that being with the women, the kids are not yet.
Right. So he's saying that they thought if they kept the men, then the Jewish nation would continue. But they didn't realize that the Jewish soul comes through the mother. So even they tried to, it didn't work.
They want to intermarry and break the...
And yeah. So guys, this is a very sweet story. It's a very beautiful story. And where does it start? How did this happen? Anybody here, what happened when God told Abraham, Abraham went outside one night, and God is telling him all these promises, and you're going to be a great nation, lech lecha, right? You're going to be a great nation, and Abraham goes outside, and he looks up and he says, Master of the world, bima eda, right? And God tells him, I'm telling you, you're going to look at the stars, you're going to be as numerous as the stars, look down at the sand, you're going to be as numerous as the sand. And what does Abraham do? He says, bima eda, how can I know for sure? I'm just one man and my holy wife Sarah. And yeah, maybe we're trying to do a little good work, host some Shabbat meals. But what do you mean that the world is evil right now? And you're telling me that my children are getting, and what does it mean? To have a son? To have your children? The fact that they're called your child means that they go in your way. You're telling me I'm going to have a nation of people that are good and hospitable and open and sincere? This is not what I see around me. B'ma'edah, how can I know for sure? So God tells him, hey, Avram, I still love you. Don't get me wrong. Avram, I still love you. You're my son. You're the best. But I got to tell you, I'm God. And I can do anything in the world. But because you questioned whether I could or not, because you needed me to prove to you how I'm going to make you into this nation that I promised you, so you're going to have, unfortunately, 400 years slavery in Egypt. Your descendants are going to be slaves for 400 years. So, whatever one little question is, but they were only slaves for 210 years, and then 190 years they left early. But from the birth of Isaac, it was 400 years from the time they were redeemed. In any case, now, the story of Pesach is compared to 3 analogies. The first is giving birth. The whole story of Egypt. The story of Egypt is also compared to a seed, to a plant, to a tree, to a seed. And it's also compared to smelting. You know what smelting is? Smelting is like when you get the iron and you get the metal and you put it in the heat and you're banging away. I don't know if you ever saw The Last Samurai. They're like getting all, smashing the metal and making a sword or making any metal object. That's smelting. So the Torah, the Tanakh, and the rabbis connected these 3 analogies to Pesach. And I think that these analogies can give us so much strength. We need a story, you know what I mean? We need a little story. Does anyone have a story about being in Egypt? Oh, we didn't explain what Egypt is yet. Good, I'm glad you're listening. So brother, Mitzrayim in Hebrew. Right? In Hebrew, the word Egypt is Mitzrayim. Now the famous teaching is, what does Mitzrayim mean? What is it? It comes from the word, anyone? Meitzar. Meitzar, Meitzarim. Right? Straits, narrowness. Right? Tight. Like you're going through, like you're squeezing through something. Guys, just be'emet. How many things in our lives are we going through this narrowness? And now, narrowness doesn't mean you're going through narrow bars at a park. Narrow means, I can't breathe. Now think about a child. A child, the first moments, right, it's in its mother's womb, and it's this amazing cocoon, and it's giving life and multiplying cell by cell by cell exponentially. And it finally becomes a little fetus, and it slowly germinates and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Until finally what happens? Finally the baby is so big, the same place in which it grew and developed from a little seed, now it's a full-grown baby and it can't fit in that little womb anymore. And it needs to get out. It's constrained. It's meitzar. So it starts moving around. I'm ready to come out. The water breaks, and the baby somehow, B'ezrat Hashem, all babies should be born in a very healthy, happy, easy way. And it pushes through the straits. It's like, to be born, you have to go through it's hard. It's not easy for the baby. And it goes through, and it's born. And now it has this awesome expanse of the entire universe. So they explain Egypt in the same way. They explain Egypt as this. When we first came down to Egypt, it's like the seed was fertilized, and we had a nice land, we had a little Beit Midrash, we could build our community finally, with Jacob and his 12 sons and daughters-in-law and daughter. What happens after we developed and we became that baby in the womb? We needed to get out. Something was wrong. Pharaoh said, no, there's something wrong here. They're getting too powerful. Put them down, and he constrained us. And in those straits, in that Meitzar, in Mitzrayim, what did we do? What did we do? Why did God take us out? What does God say? Why did I take you out? And guys, this is just the background. We're going to take it to our lives. Why did God say, I'm taking you out? Huh? Right? That's true. That's why. But what did he say? He gave a reason. I'm taking you out because I heard their cries. I heard their screams. So we felt constrained. We felt that this is not the place where I'm supposed to be. We felt wrong with our situation, with our environment. There was something wrong here. We didn't know what it was. We didn't even put it into words. But we expressed our pain. We cried out from the depths of our heart. And God heard that cry. And God sent Moshe to take us out. And we got to the Red Sea, and God splits the sea, like the water breaks, The water breaks, the sea splits. And we go through. And we get to the other side. And we were still scared, even though we were going through the straits. Finally, the water crashes, and we're saved from all our enemies. And we sang Az Yashir. We sang, we danced, we rejoiced. And the screaming of the baby after it's born. That is the screaming of the baby. I'm alive. I'm still alive. You might think it's a sad cry, but it's like, it's a beautiful cry. L'chaim. So guys, this, we see that the Egyptian paradigm, the slavery in Egypt, was just, we were slaves in Egypt. But this moment is an expression of all exiles and all redemptions in past, present, and future in all aspects of our life. That we know that the Reb Tzadok explains the first time something is mentioned and explained in the Torah, it's the headquarters. You want to understand something? Look at the first time it's mentioned that God says it, and that is the deepest way you can understand what you're going through. So first of all, what I found so awesome is that God said, you guys are going to be slaves for 400 years. The slavery itself was a prophecy of God. Meaning you think you got to this place, this difficult moment in your life, where you feel you can't even breathe, this difficulty, this challenge, there's no way out. You think a baby's going to make it to the other side? No, it thinks it's over. And we get to those moments and we think, this is a random thing. God is against me. God hates me. God left me alone. People come to the conclusion, yeah, maybe there was a God, but He doesn't care about me today. He left me alone. So the Egyptian exile teaches us that all our pains, all our struggles, our exiles, our constraints are also from God. And there's a reason why we went through it. Now, let me ask you. Imagine someone with a very bad addiction. A very bad addiction. Let's call it gambling, okay? So it probably started off because he went to a casino, and like the first time he went gambling, he had a really hot roll at the craps tables, and he won $1,500 in one night. He's like, wow, this is great. This is awesome. Let's go back. And he goes back and he loses the $1,500. He's like, okay, well, I made it, I lost it, let's make it again. And he goes more and he goes deeper and deeper and deeper until I had someone, an extended family, who literally sold and lost everything for him and his wife and his kids due to gambling. And it comes to this place where you're obsessed with gambling. That is who you are. You identify with that part of yourself, and you even come to love it. Because you identify with it. You will love gambling even though you lost everything. You love it. Because you realize that this addiction is who I am. And I love myself, hopefully. So you love the gambling. So the big question is, why when the Jewish people left Egypt, why did God have to do it in this crazy way that we're still talking about today? Why did He have to do these 10 plagues which completely destroyed nature and destroyed the world and destroyed the Egyptians? I'll ask you another question. Okay, fine, God wants to do the miracles, whatever. Why when Moshe first comes to Pharaoh, he says, let my people go. And Pharaoh says, oh, you want your people to go? No, they're going to get even more work. It gets even worse. When God promised him it's going to get better. You're thinking, I'm going through this very difficult moment in my life, and I expect God to help me. And you try to work, you try to do what you got to do, your little work, and it gets even worse. What's going on? Not only does God not care about me, He hates me. And Moshe leaves there complaining. He's like, how could you do this to these people? And the people hate Moshe. Why did you say anything? We were better off without you. It got even worse. And why did it have to be through these crazy 10 plagues? Why couldn't God just said, hey, He could have told Pharaoh himself, I'm taking the Jews out, let them go, and it would have been saved the Egyptian society. They would have been nice, living their lives, and the Jews would have left happily. So here's the point. We go through, let's say, the year, okay? We could say we go through a life. And for some people, it really is a life. You go through your life. But let's just call it a year. Hopefully we had a really good Pesach last year, and we only had a year. But you basically go through life, you go through the year, and yeah, you do some good things and you do some bad things. You have some good habits and some bad addictions. And and you create this ego. Now, before I explain this, guys, I promise you're going to get really down to earth in a second. I just have one more question for you. On Pesach, what are we doing? On Pesach, we're getting every little crumb of chametz, of leavened bread, and we gather it all together and we burn it. And on Pesach, you're not even allowed, some people don't even put the matzah in water or in any liquid in order that maybe there was a little flour that might rise. We have to be so careful not to have any chametz, only matzah, right? So you'll say, okay, I get it. And that makes sense. Because chametz, what does chametz represent? What's the difference between matzah and chametz? It's the second step. What's the first step? What's the difference between chametz and matzah?
Non-leaven.
Okay, practically speaking, you have a piece of matzah here and a piece of bread here. What's the difference
The bread
between?
is leaven.
What does that mean?
It's puffed and rised.
Yeah, it rised, and so what is it? What did it rise
Air.
with? Air. Air. Yeah, you got it. I was looking for air.
Yeah.
The difference between matzah and chametz is air.
Time.
Air. Chametz is full of air. It's so inflated. And what Rebecca just said, it has a big ego. You hold yourself up. Maybe you haven't done anything in your entire life, and what chametz means, you raise yourself up. What's matzah? Matzah, what's the difference in the letters? I can't have a board, but chametz is chet mem tzadik, and matzah is mem tzadik hey. The only difference is the chet and the hey. What's the difference between the chet and the hey? They're the same letter, except there's a little opening in the hay. There's a little opening. You let the air out. You put your ego flat. And what do you get when you're flat? What do you get when you have no more ego? That inflated ego, and you get matzah. What is matzah? It's the essence of humility. But what is it deeply? Matzah is the true self, is your true self. Now, think about this. On the one hand, when I speak to my parents, I want to be very respectful. And even if they, are mean to me, hopefully, I'll take a deep breath and and I'll act a certain way with my parents. And then I'm with my brother, and I'll act very different with my brother, because he's my younger brother. And then with my friends, and with everybody, we have our own persona, right? And then even when we're with ourselves, we even act even differently than all those. And we think differently. So that is called the ego. The ego is the sense of self. You understand? The ego is the feeling that I'm a person, I deserve something, I don't deserve anything, right? This is what it means to have an ego. Magia li, I deserve it. What does it mean to be matzah? It means there's no more ego. There's no more taking up room. There's selflessness. There's humility. There's looking in the good in each other. It's no longer about me. It's about what's right. And that's matzah. Matzah is not your ego. That's chametz. Matzah is your most essential self, your soul. That's matzah. Matzah is stripped of all ego, the essence of what it is, the essence of who you are, it's your soul. Now let me ask you this, that's great, that's beautiful. Then if chametz is so bad on Pesach, why is it that 7 weeks later on Shavuot, when we received the Torah, the sacrifice we gave in the temple was 2 big loaves of bread? If chametz is so bad that you can't even have a crumb on Pesach, why is it that on Shavuot it's a mitzvah to eat bread? To eat bread, fluffy, nice, fluffy, wonder bread. Why is it? So guys, we're going to hopefully answer all these questions with one idea. But first I have to say a story. L'chaim. just to get an idea, a sense. There was a holy Rebbe, Reb Zusha of Anipoli. I was blessed that on his saul, on his yard site. Oh, after this story.
No, I thought maybe you wanted
Oh.
to dig in with this.
I'm not good enough for that, brother. So he was known to be the most humble person ever. He was the matzah of all matzahs. And he looked like a simple beggar. Like nobody would think he's special at all. And there was a rabbi of the city, and he was always very angry at Reb Zusha, because here he's the rabbi of the city, and he's so depressed. And here's Reb Zusha, who seems like a very simple guy, and he's always blowing his mind with joy. How could it be? So he came to Reb Zusha one day angry. They went to a wedding, and he comes the next day to Reb Zusha, bangs on the door almost breaks down because Reb Zusha literally had nothing. And Reb Zusha opens the door with these shining eyes and says, "Brother, please come in, thank you so much, come in." And he says, "Why are you so happy all the time and I'm so depressed? Why are you so happy and I'm so angry?" So Reb Zusha told him, he said, "Brother," and Reb Zusha never called himself I. He said, "There's only one I. God is the only I who can call himself I. I'm just Zusha." He didn't even want to take any credit to his, he wouldn't even say I. She says, "Yesterday we went to this wedding, right? What happened?" So you got the invitation to the wedding and you realized I was the 14th person to be invited to the wedding. I'm the rabbi of the city. I should have been the first. Maybe the second, if maybe. I'm the 14th. So he says, "Okay, that's it. I'm going late to the wedding. This is very bad. Very, very, very unclassy of them." So Reb Zusha tells him, "So you went to the wedding late, and what happens? They found someone else to do the Mesader Kiddushin. They found someone else to do the wedding." You're like, "What? I'm the rabbi of the city. I should do the wedding." So he says, "Fine, they better make it up to me later." And they go to eat. And he gets there, you get there with your head up and you look at the table and you see all the seats are taken, all the food is already eaten. You're like, "What? They didn't save food for me? What is this? I should be sitting at the head of the table." And they just sat me down on the corner. They gave me some scraps of food. I said, fine. But they're going to make me bless. They're going to bless the meal. They're going to lead the zimun. In the end, they ignore him. They forgot about him. He's sitting at the end of the table anyway. They forgot about him. And what did you do? You come home screaming at your wife, screaming at your kids, full of anger. How could they do this to me? Says, "No, let me tell you what happened to Zusha." Right, Reb Zusha says, Zusha got an invitation to the wedding. And Zusha thought to himself, "I got invited? Zusha got invited to the wedding? Who is Zusha? Who am I to get invited to the wedding? I went there 5 hours early to help set up and make sure everything was arranged." So because Zusha was there 5 hours early, they made Zusha Mesader Kiddushin. I did the wedding. And because Zusha did the wedding, so Zusha sat at the head of the table. And because Zusha sat at the head of the table, Zusha benched. And Zusha came home, hugged his wife, and went to sleep. Says, "I'm so sorry, my dear Rabbi. The problem is that you think that you deserve everything in the world. And you think everybody is a pawn to be used for your gratification. That's not my attitude. To me, everything that happens is a gift. Everything is bonus. Everything is a blessing. It's the difference between an inflated ego and a piece of matzah. So now let's take it down to our lives. So imagine each of us has, on some level, a certain aspect to our lives, to what we do, to how we act, where we're in Egypt. Let's sing one niggun and then we'll do, is it tuned?
I think so.
Let's do one quick niggun, like 30 seconds, 1 minute, and then we'll conclude, okay? Is there still a pick somewhere? Or?
I don't know, where's the pig?
No,
You didn't give me it.
You said
You
it.
had one at the beginning?
I did. Guys, here we go. L'chaim in the beginning, and now we're gonna go.
I'm in the middle.
So far we went 0 to
Is this
10.
the beginning, bro? I hope it's the beginning.
Now we're gonna go. Now we're gonna go 10 to 100. L'chaim. So, this is the story that we've said so far of each of us at any moment of crisis and any moment of change. We go through so many changes in life, so many rebirths. We get married. God forbid some people get divorced. We have children.
Bar mitzvah.
We change our career.
Bar mitzvah, wedding.
Bar mitzvah, wedding.
Old new birth.
So many changes. We go from high school to college, to jobs, to retirement, right? There's so many moments of rebirth, of change. The story of Pesach is a story of change. In the beginning, you might look at your life and see, wow, everything's great. I'm wonderful. You're in that stage where the Jewish people are in Egypt, but they're thriving. But sometimes our egos get in the way a little bit. Sometimes we start feeling maybe better than somebody else. Maybe we feel angry at someone else, angry at God. Maybe we feel like we get into bad behaviors. On some level, there's a certain level of our ego, of this inflated self that starts to arise. So God wants us to be our best. God wants us to receive the Torah. God wants us to be living in Israel. God wants us to achieve our actualization in life, to feel accomplished, to feel like we did our purpose in this world. But the Jews living in Egypt were so comfortable. They were so comfortable with their little small-mindedness. Just thinking, yeah, we'll be a little nation living in Egypt, we'll mind to ourselves. That God said, I'm so sorry, but if you think that I only brought you in this world to be little shepherds in the land of Goshen, then you don't know the first thing of what I chose you for. So sorry to say, but I'm going to have to wake you up. Because I have to turn you into a nation that's going to change the entire world. And He makes them slaves. Now we ask the question, okay, fine, we're slaves. We're in this Meitzar. Why doesn't God just take us out? Why do you have to go through the plagues? Why do you have to go through the miracles? Why doesn't He just take us out? And the answer is what happens later on. Later on, hey bro. Later on, at the moment of, hey bro, come sit down, relax. No, bro. Later on, at the moment of our first challenge in the desert, we say, Moshe, God, why did you take us here? We were better as slaves in Egypt. Now, how could you say that it's better being a slave in Egypt than being in God's intimate care? And the problem was that even though they were technically free in their own heart, in their own psyche, they were still slaves in Egypt. And what did they need to break free from this mentality? They needed God to come and show them, you guys are my children. I have such dreams for you guys, you have no idea. If we never experienced God's hand in the world, we would have never had the strength to live and die for what we believed. We would have never had the strength to stand up to every nation in all of history, to change the world. And you ask, how could it be that in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 5,800 miles from the Sinai, a little country called the United States are building a constitution based on what God told the Jews at Mount Sinai 3,000 years later? If we were taken out as slaves and our egos, our identification was, oh no, I'm just a slave, I'm nothing. It was better to be in Egypt. If that's all we were, then we would have maybe, even if God kept us alive, we would have been slaves one way or another. God didn't want us to be slaves. So He had to show us the craziest, most awesome miracles to say that I'm with you and I am your God and you are together we're going to do the most amazing things. You're going to be my nation. You're going to be the light unto the whole world. That back then when you said, what's God? They would have said, which God? Today you say, what's God? They say, what do you mean? The one God. When you say God, everybody in the world knows what you're talking about. And we brought that to the world. Or Hashem brought it to the world through us. So being in Egypt, the first thing we have to do is recognize I'm not perfect. You guys, we'll end in 5 minutes, okay? The first thing being in Egypt, and tonight is just about Egypt. Understanding Egypt. Tomorrow, next week is about breaking out of Egypt. But the first step is to know who you are and where you are. The first step the first step for the Jewish people back then was to scream out and to say, God, there's something wrong. What's this screaming that the Jews were screaming? And God says, I heard their screams. When you scream from the depths of your heart, you're not screaming from your ego. It wasn't a bunch of slaves screaming. It was the Jewish soul, the essence, covered up by layers of ego, that was screaming that I'm held captive in this world that I don't belong in. It was a screaming of the heart. The first thing we have to do is to recognize that there's something wrong. You know, Moshe, my brother loves this Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu, when he came into the burning bush, when God told him, "Go redeem my people," so God said, what everybody knows, right? My worst nightmare: take off your shoes. Right? Shal ne'alecha me'al raglecha. Shal ne'alecha, take off your shoes, me'al raglecha, from your feet. So the holy Chassidic Rebbes explain, Shal na'alecha. Na'al means a lock. A lock. Like you're going to the lockers and you lock your locker. Okay, the lock. Shal ne'alecha. Take off your locks. Me'al raglecha. From upon your feet. But regel, raglecha, comes from the word regel, which means habits, preconceptions, self-assumptions. Take off the chains. Take off the locks that you've placed on yourself. You think you're supposed to be a little shepherd in the middle of nowhere, shepherding and living in a godly world? No, that's not your goal. Your mission is to descend into the depths of Egypt and to save my people, your people. And to do that, you have to remove all your preconceptions of yourself. You have to go beyond what you thought you were and achieve only what I know you can. So Moshe goes. But then the big question is why? That I asked originally. Why was it that the first time Moshe went, why did Pharaoh say, give the Jews even more work? Why did he make it even worse? Why did Moshe's mission had to fail at the beginning? Why did it have to start with pain? Because Moshe Rabbeinu, even though God told him, get off your locks, realize that you're greater than this. Okay, that was his awareness. That's when he realized, okay, I could do something. So he left. But that was the same level of the Jews screaming out. They were still in Egypt. Even though they recognize there's something wrong, you're still in Egypt. So Moshe, even though he knew potentially I could be great, I need to save the Jewish people, he still had those locks. He was still didn't realize who he was. So what did he have to do? God had to break him. God had to break his ego completely so that he could be reborn and start fresh. Like a seed, right? We said the Egyptian exile is like a seed. You put the seed in, the first thing that happens, you think, oh wow, what a beautiful tree. No, the first thing that happened was that this little seed completely disintegrated into the soil. You look at this disintegration, like, how could you do this? It's supposed to be a tree. Why is it being ruined? Poor little seed, it has to destroy itself. God is destroying it. No, it's just disintegrating the ego and tapping into the essence, the soul, the matzah. And as soon as you tap into that level, then you build your ego. Slowly, but with intention. You need an ego. We need an ego. We need to be a person. We need to be an individual. God didn't create 6 million or 18 million or however many Jews there are in the world, monkeys. He created people who question. That's the whole thing of the Gemara, is questioning and deepening. It's not to be with the status quo. And to do that, you need to remove and eliminate that ego. But once you do, once you start fresh and you tap into the essence of your soul, then you can rebuild your ego slowly. But it's not an unholy ego now. It's the holiest ego. Because your entire persona is based on your soul. Your identification is not, what do I want right now? What is that? The whole ego is, what can I do for another person? With your ego, with your personality, how can I make the world a better place? Okay, beautiful God, thank you so much for giving me this job. person with chametz ego says, yeah, now I have so much money, I'm going to get a great car, I'm going to be better than the whole world, everybody's going to look up to me, this is the best, I'm going to get the best person in the world, I'm going to, everything the best. Better than everybody else. What's holy ego? Wow, God, what an opportunity, you gave me this money, how many families can I feed? And yeah, for sure I need a car, I need a house, I need to have big Shabbat tables. But I need to have big Shabbat tables. I need to share it. You have an ego. You're an independent, you're a person. But with that individuality, you're one with your people and with your God. And then you can look back at Mitzrayim. You can look back at those moments where you didn't have clarity, where you felt that there was something wrong, and you'll realize, wow, that's amazing. I would have never had this clarity. I would have never been able to take off those chains of my habits had I not been in that bad place. And life is a process. It's one step after another step after another step. And that's why, even though chametz is so bad, on Pesach, on Shavuot, after we refined ourselves, and we perfected ourselves, and we've risen, we've built an ego based on our soul, meaning it's not an outside in, it's an inside out. We don't think about our body and then our soul. We think about how our body can express our soul, and your ego is based on the depths, on your essence, on who you really are. Then it's a mitzvah to have the bread. Then it's a mitzvah. The blessing we give to God is, God, take this ego and let me use it to perfect the world and to make a contribution and live my life according to the purpose to which you created me. Let me be my best. And this is what God was doing in Pesach. That we know Pesach means, now this is the last point and then we'll say one story. Pesach means to pass over. That the Jews back then, they needed some crazy situation. They needed, Pharaoh made them slaves, and Pharaoh killing the firstborn males. So they needed an external situation to rise out of it. The present, the gift that we have is that Pesach is the external movement. The energy of Pesach, of Passover, is the moment in which we can tap into that place and rise beyond our ego and tap into the essence of our soul. L'chaim. So there's one story, and this is a very famous story, and it's the greatest. I think it's the most appropriate for right now. So Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, the holy tzaddik Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, he tells this story. He says that there are these two best friends in the entire world. One was a Jew, and one was a non-Jew. And they were best friends. They were beggars in Eastern Europe. And all day long, they're collecting money, they're whatever. Finally, it's springtime, and the Jew turns to his best friend, the goy, and he says, "Brother, do I have a surprise for you, man? I know we're always scrambling for food, but on Pesach, there's this amazing thing right now called Passover, that if we get invited to a Jewish person's home, we're going to have the greatest meal we've had in our entire lives." I remember when I was a kid, we used to have it. So for 3 weeks, from today and the next 3 weeks, he's training him to be a Jew. Put a kippah like this, talk like this, say Shalom Aleichem, Aleichem Shalom. And they say, I think the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, why is it that when two Jews meet each other, one says Shalom Aleichem and Aleichem Shalom? Peace unto you, peace. Why can't you say Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem? Why does he have to say the opposite? Because Jews are always going to get into an argument. So better start in the beginning, Shalom Aleichem. No, it's Aleichem Shalom. Now we can talk.
Arabs too.
So they each go to shul, they each get invited to different person's home, and let's follow the goy in the story. So the Nanju goes to the house and he's so excited and he's like, oh my God, and he smells so good and it's like, oh, this is going to be awesome. First thing is, get a nice big cup of wine, they say Kiddush and they're like drinking the wine. He's like, great. And he drinks the wine, feeling a little tipsy. And he's like, okay, I'm ready, like let's have the meal. So okay, the first thing is they get a little parsley, dipping it in salt water. He's like, okay, this is an interesting appetizer, Then they start going and talking and talking. He's like, I didn't think the Jews could talk this much. And they're going and going for hours. Finally, he's starving. And they come and say, okay, do you think he's getting ready for the main course? They bring him this little stale, dry cracker that he's never had something so dry in his whole life. Could barely swallow it. He doesn't know what the heck is going on. And he's ready for this food that his friend promised him. Finally, the main course comes. They bring this big bowl. He doesn't know what it is. They put it in front of him. He puts a big spoonful. He thinks this is the main course, and he puts it in his mouth, and it's the maror, and his mouth starts burning, and it's like this crazy. He doesn't understand what's happening. This is the main course, and he tries to stay seated for a few seconds. He can't take it anymore. He throws his plate across the room. He's like, "What the heck? You Jews are so cheap. This is your main course," and he runs out of the house and goes back to the place where he's supposed to meet his friend, the Jew. And he's sitting there an hour. What the heck? It's taking 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours later, he sees from as the sun's rising, the Jew is walking back home. He's like, hey, brother, what are you doing here so early? I left early so I could meet you here, what are you doing here already? And he's not amused. He says, the holy non-Jewish brother says, what did you do to me? Where did you take me? You promised me the most amazing meal of my life. I had a glass of wine, that was nice. But then I had a parsley, they were talking, I had a dry stale cracker, and for the main course they gave me this bitter herb. So the Jew's like, yeah. And then? And he's like, what do you mean and then? And then I freaking ran out of there to meet you here. And he's like, brother, are you serious? He says, thank God there are 2 nights of Passover, but you stupid fool. He says, the bitter herb is the part of the Seder right before the main course. Right before the most delicious, exquisite meal you've ever had in your life. If you had only waited past the bitterness, you would have tasted all the sweetness. Sometimes at that moment when we're in those difficult challenges in our lives, those transitions, it can feel like we're lost. Like there's no hope. It's so narrow, I can't even see the other end. I can't see any way out. But I bless you guys, and please bless me also, that the same way that the Jews also felt like there was no way out and all they can do was scream, all they can do is look up to heaven and express their pain, so too, whenever we're in any difficult moment, just look upwards and realize where the pain is coming from. Realize that God ordained the Jews to be in Egypt, to be slaves. Realize that this pain right now you're going through is good for you. It's breaking your ego so that you can live up to your name to really be a light unto the nations. L'chaim, l'chaim.
It's going to be now a 5-minute break, and then we're going.
Wait, what about a nigga?
Whoever wants to go, can
everyone has to really search. So take everything I said and you have to apply it to everything. Understand? Like, so we have to be looking for chametz in the house. Very sweet, very beautiful. Yeah, you don't have any chametz in your house for sure. But when you're just as much as you have to clean the chametz, you also have to look at the chametz in your heart. Find those places where you are struggling. Find those places where you are maybe building yourself a little too high. Not to like put yourself down, but to be real, you know? Looking for chametz. You have to look for the chametz in the heart, right? And like the Reb Shlomo says, you have to. How do you get rid of the chametz after you find all the chametz? What do? You get a big fire and you burn it all. Exactly. You burn the chametz. So Reb Shlomo says that just like you burn all the chametz with a fire, so too the way you burn the chametz of the heart is with fire. Fire of the heart. Like he said, I forgot which Rebbe it was. He says, this certain Rebbe says, I learned how to serve God from a Cossack. A Cossack was the army people, crazy drunkards, who were like tortured. What is the word I'm looking for? Terrorized.
She got it.
Terrorized tortured and terrorized the Jewish people, made pogroms. So he says, I learned how to serve God from a Cossack. He says, one time I was walking, and I see they're beating this soldier, this Cossack soldier. The general is beating him down. And I asked, I said, what did he do? What did he do so bad that you have to beat him like this? So you say, well, this guy, this soldier was supposed to be on guard duty, and it was so cold at night that he half froze. We found him half dead, half frozen by the time we got here. I don't get it. I mean, the guy stayed in the guard post despite that he was dying of cold. He should be given a medal. A medal. He shouldn't be tortured. He shouldn't be beaten. So he said, no. The general says, when you're serving the Tsar of Russia, you have to do it with such passion, with such fire, that you can't get frozen.
Wow.
She says, from that guy I learned how to serve God. So what's fire? What's fire? What's the fire of the heart? What does that mean? Yeah, when do you do? What do you have? Passion for what? All right, I'm really passionate. I want to go watch 50 Shades of Grey. I'm like so passionate. I'm so fiery. You know, I want to go watch 50 Shades of Grey right now. Right? Like, what's the passion? Where's the fire for? Where is it? Right? Yeah. Yearning, that Alex said it best. A yearning, passionate closeness to God.
Yeah, but how do you, the question is, okay, it's easy, you know, what is the fire, what's the, the yearning and burning up for Hashem, that's the fire, but how do I build up that fire? That's the question. We have, like you said, there were the 1,000 grays, what did you call it?
50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Grey, and then food, and this and that, right? So we have a burning fire for those things, but I don't have a burning fire for all that yearning, so how am I supposed to get it? No.
Contemplation.
Our Rebbeinu says about taking the fire of the tables.
No, so say.
No,
say, bro, say. Hey, say, bro, say.
It's not like sure.
That's not, it's not anyone's shit. Guys, there's no way we can sit closer. This is so weird. Where's my kippah? Oh, my kippah's at your house?
I think connecting to our essence, because our essence is what wants to connect to Hashem.
Connecting to the essence, yeah. Emet. Emet. Ah, Emet. Guys, just one last thing that Miriam said, which is like freaking fire to the heart. So true. Tapping, you were saying we're talking like tapping into the soul, tapping into the soul. When you find yourself, I mean, this is really a different topic, a different sheer, but when you find yourself filled with anxiety, or you're scared, or you second guess yourself, you're not sure, all those feelings of fear on some level, even anger, and it all comes from one place. It all comes from the ego. Why do you get angry? Because you walk into a room and things aren't going the way you want it to go. So you start screaming. Stop doing that, what are you doing? And you get so angry because they're supposed to follow what you want. Like the person said, I'm very easy to get along with once you learn to worship me. You know, like, yeah, if everybody's doing what you want, you're happy. And if they do anything that you don't think is like the right way, then you're lashing out at them. That's pure ego. Sometimes you use the ego in the name of holiness, but really you just want to get angry. So you're getting angry at that person for doing something wrong. But really you just wanted to get angry, so you lashed out and you're putting in the name of holiness. Like the people, God forbid, they throw stones, God forbid. Right? It's like, in the name of holiness, in the name of God, the craziest things have happened. But we're not talking about in the name of God, we're talking about God Himself. And it says about God Himself, Oz v'chedva bimkomo, strength and joy are in His place. And we know that we each are a spark of that God. That the same God placed a piece of Himself within each of us. So this is what Miriam was saying, when you tap into the essence, to the matzah, and you let go. I don't need to be upset. Why am I anxious? Because I don't think it's all going to go according to the way I want it, and I'm worried. Who says it needs to go according to the way you want it? Why can't you just let go? Why can't you let go of that ego? Sometimes God puts us in difficult situations so that we're forced to let go. To the point where you look up and say, God, okay, I'm helpless. I only have you. And that's what the Jewish people were doing in Egypt. They said, God, we're slaves. We have no way out of this. All we have is you. And God said, okay, you're relying on me? And He does the 10 plagues and He gets us out. When we feel we're trapped and we feel anxious, we feel those negative feelings, realize that it's not coming from who you are. It's only coming because you're removed from who you are. And you feel incongruity within your soul, within your heart. You feel that, yeah, on the one hand I have an ego, on the other hand I have a soul. But if you're able to tap into the soul to realize that God is the Balabait, God is ruling the world, God is governing. God took us out of Egypt and He's taking me out of my situation now, and there's nothing to worry about. When you make yourself flat and you just tap into the essence, then you tap into the rhythm of the universe. And as soon as you tap into that, you open your ears to that, then you're filled with two things: strength, confidence, and joy. And there's nothing else. There's confidence and there's joy. Because you know who you are, you know that you're good, and you know that everything is going to be good. See you, brother, I love you. See you, brother, I love you. Well, there's a story I totally forgot.
Maybe go and bring it all back.
Guys, how was it? Did you also go to APAC? No, you didn't go. Only Rebecca?
Where's
How
your
was it?
phone? Where's your phone? Where's your phone? This is his phone? This is your phone?
Yeah.
Can I turn it off? Or
Sure, sure.
I
Yeah.
just want to call Ellie.
Oh.
He said he's gonna come at 9, and I didn't bring my phone, so I'm thinking maybe.
You have the number?
No, but
Yeah, take it, take it,
right?
take it, take
He
it.
has your number?
Ellie?
Yeah.
Has my number, yeah.
So he would have called me.
Well, my phone's off.
Hmm?
My
Oh, it's
phone's...
still recording.
No, it's on airplane mode.
Oh, okay, good.
What time
Turn it
is
off, bro. We don't need it
No,
anymore.
no, no. It's, what time is it?
Take it off, bro. Take it off.